Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back to the ANEW Insight Podcast. We are back for the second half of our interview with progress coach, podcaster, and self-proclaimed recovering perfectionist, Monica Packer. Monica gave us invaluable insight into her inspiration to recover from perfectionism and embrace balance. I cannot wait to pick her brain some more. Thank you so much for coming back, Monica.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So when we left off, we had talked about the nature of perfectionism and then the development for you in terms of being in the middle ground of starting a do something list. And I think that there is so much value in a do something list, but I think really clearly define that for our listeners so that they can then be inspired to make their own.
Mm-hmm. A do something list, and in our community, we call it the DSL for short, is a way to prioritize daily fulfillment in your life. It's how you explore who you are by uncovering parts of yourself that have been long ignored or swept away and exploring new parts of yourself that you've also wanted to do, but have been on the back burner or brushed away. And, it's not a bucket list. Like, it's not like kiss a stranger on the top of the Eiffel Tower kind of list, although those are fun. And
That sounds fun.
Sounds fun. I'm sure my husband would disagree.
Same.
But it's also not a goals or a resolutions list. And that's really important. And
Yes.
whenever I teach this, and we do have a free training, so we'll make sure we share that at the end. One thing I like to really emphasize is the whole point is that exploration piece. I have never completed a list in now 9+ years of making mine. It's never been about the completion. It's not about certain markers of achievement. It's about you. And my first list was made because I was not in a place where I was ready to make goals or resolutions. That had been a part of my life that I didn't feel like I could do because I had such perfectionistic standards about them in the past. So I hadn't made goals and resolutions in years, but I still needed a push. I still needed a push to put myself on my own list of responsibilities. I needed a way to make sure that I was feeling like myself more regularly, that I had time for my own interests and hobbies or things I was curious about, but to do so in a way that was fun instead of pressure filled.
Yes. So give us a little bit more of a picture about New Year's resolutions. This is something I talk about a lot. Why do they always tend to fail?
Oh my goodness. This is another thing. Like, it came along the way with the do something list gradually. I started getting back into goal making. And I think it's okay to have resolutions in terms of, like, if you need a word of the year or like a feeling to aspire to, I think people can put that in the resolutions bucket list and that, or the bucket, and that totally work for them. But in most cases, it seems like resolutions are kind of like these shots in the dark, right? Like, that you don't really have a target to land on. Either they're so broad or they're like so hyper achievement based and not planted in reality that you get put in a position of expending so much effort and so soon that you pay a price, and that price could be your mental health, it could be your relationships, or you pay the price of failing at achieving it. So, that can be a tricky relationship for a lot of people. If it's working for them, then I say it's working for them. But I think for most people, it doesn't seem to work that well for those reasons.
Yes. I think that it's the same kind of principle as all or nothing thinking. They're very broad
Yeah.
They're not necessarily very specific, and they're very difficult to sustain,
Yes.
especially if you're trying to create a new habit. A lot of people have their resolution like, I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to climb Mount Everest. I want to quit
I want to
smoking.
organize my whole house. I've heard that one a lot too, which I
Exactly.
get.
And
I
I
get
mean,
it.
yeah, we all get,
Yeah.
my husband especially gets with me. He would
Yeah.
really like me to have that be a resolution. But, they don't have a specific path
Mhm.
toward the achievement of them. And then they're often so broad, and just so based in that idea of perfectionism that people then tend to give up on them, by February. So
Yeah.
I think, what I emphasize in my practice are tiny habits. You have sticky habits,
Yeah.
and I really love that name. So give us a picture of how something from the do something list can be achieved, maybe through using sticky habits.
Mm. I like this connection. And it's interesting because prioritizing time to have a hobby, to have an interest, to
Mhm.
explore even something like sourdough totally saved me in 2023. That was the thing on my do
Yep.
something list. We tend to find different things for different years save us, and that was the thing on my do something list that saved me for 2023. Um,
Mm,
we tend to not think, oh, that's just something you do, but oftentimes, in order for us to have that time, we need to have either be a habit in our lives, like a commitment and something that happens regularly, or we need to have other supportive habits that give us the time and energy we need to do those, to
mm,
have time and energy for those other things. Um, Habit formation for me is one of the trickiest things out there because we think we all know what it takes. It's
mm,
another one of those through osmosis. We just know, like, we just
mm,
know magically, like, in order to form a habit, you have the habit for 28 days. And if you do that habit the same way, the same day, time of day, and day after day, then you'll get the habit.
mhm,
We all think we know what it looks like to have the exercise habit. Like we can all rattle off like the minimum. Oh, 3 days a week of 30 minutes of this. Like we know. We all think we know what it means to be a meditator or to practice yoga or to be a journaler, to be a day planner, a meal planner. Like we all know, we think, right? We think we know what it looks like because these are so mold based
mhm,
and they're so perfectionistic driven
mm.
that really what we're missing is that it sets us up to fail, just like those resolutions you talked about. And one other factor of why I forgot to say resolutions tend to not work is because they are so should based.
Yes.
Okay. It's not about aspiring to be yourself. It's about aspiring to be who you think you're supposed to be. Okay. And that doesn't help and it doesn't work. And that's why the do something list can help you to explore who are you. So then you then know what goals you need to work on and what
Mm.
habits you actually want to prioritize. The way I want to change we do habits is particularly so for women. And I know there may be some men listening and this may apply to them as they're listening. So just listen with an open heart if that's you. But for women in general, I found myself and both of the women I was working with for years is that we kept failing at these habit methods. And these were like the most up-to-date methods. Um, some elements could work for some women, but most of the women I was working with were failing. And we had to really take a look at not them because I knew them really well by then. I'm a progress coach and I've coached women for over 7 years now on their habits, identity, and fulfillment. Anyway, I knew these women well. I knew they were not lazy.
Mhm.
Okay, I knew they were smart. I knew they were capable. I had seen the great growth they had made and the work they put into doing so. So I had to instead look at the methods we were using. And one of the big things I discovered is that all the methods we were learning from were written by men. And I
Ah,
don't I don't discount them just because of that, but what we have to see is that they were simply missing information.
mm.
And the information is that women's lives are different than men's lives. And this is science backed. This is not anecdotal. The big overarching reason that I like to teach about is invisible labor. A lot of
Yes.
us are more familiar with the mental load, right? That's one of the parts of invisible labor. Invisible labor is the often unseen, undervalued, and underpaid, if paid at all, tasks that people perform that help keep households and communities and workplaces afloat. And on that last piece, I always like to say, who plans your work parties? Okay. These are the things that by a big majority, women carry way more than men. Men do carry the invisible load too. In the United States, women spend 4.5 hours a day on house and family management, and men spend 2. This is way better than a lot of places. In India, for example, it's 6 hours to 1 hour. So 6 hours for
Wow.
women and 1 hour per man. So this is a worldwide issue. It transcends politics. It transcends religion. It transcends culture. Um, it's relevant for every woman's life, that whether they're working or not, whether they have children or not. And that's why it hit me so clearly, because again, since I knew the women I was working with, I'm like, what is the common denominator here? And it really was just that they were women, because they were so broad. I had a retiring grandma struggle just as much as I did a single working woman who was climbing the corporate ladder,
Mm.
and a stay-at-home mom, of many little kids. Like, it was across the board. So, what we had to do is form a new way of create a new method for women to form habits specifically, and not throwing the baby out with the bathwater with all the other methods written by men, because there were incredible elements such as small habits, such as habit stacking that we could use, but how to look at habits in a different way and how to form them in a different way so that our habits actually stick and that they
Yes.
meet the how our lives look different, which, if I were to put in just a few words, we have less energy. Again, this is science back. We have less energy. We have less time. We have less dependability in our schedules, and we have less support. So that's how we have to form habits, is with those things in mind, not against them, not pretending they don't exist, and that it all comes
Mm.
down to just gritting your teeth and doing something. There are obstacles we have, and we have to work with them, not against them.
So how then do you create a sticky habit?
hmm Well, I mean, I could teach you this for 6 hours. So let me give you like a couple minute version of this. Um, One way we could frame this is flexible habit formation. Now, I think a lot of people, when they hear flexible and habit, they think those things seem opposite.
Mm.
And because they can't do the exact habit in the exact same way at the exact same time, they not only think they don't have the habit, they stop trying again, or
Mhm.
they have to. It's just that sheer effort requires a cost. So instead, what we need to do is change the way we see consistency. Consistency is doing your best most of the time over time.
Mhm.
So our habits still live and die by consistency, but not the rigid perfection model of consistency we have. Doing your best is allowed to change. Season to season, even day to day, your best will look different. So I'll explain how that looks in the habit in a moment. And also, the goal is for consistency is more times than not. If you're doing something more times than not, then you do have a habit.
Mhm.
Now, the way we get around the micro way of forming a habit that's flexible is something I call a baseline. A lot of us start with the ideals, the ideal version of the habit we want. Like, hey, it's Monday. That means I am now going to exercise. And even if their ideal seems reasonable, like I'm just going to go for a 30-minute walk. Like, they're not like, I'm going to do a boot camp 1 hour every day, 6 days a week. We need to have a baseline version. And this is the smallest and simplest version of your ideal habit. It's
Mhm.
the version that you can do on your worst of day. Okay.
Yes.
When a kid throws up, when your period starts, or when you're in baseball season, or there's a big work thing going on, even if you have to plan that darn work party. I'm not saying you have to, just saying it. Um, and that version is what allows you the flexibility you need to be consistent. And when women
Hmm.
specifically, because again, I teach women, so I apologize if this is like a man listening. This can apply to you too. When women first hear about the baseline, they're like, but that's not what I want. I'm like, I know. If you want the ideal though, this is the way you're going to get there.
You know what I was thinking about while you were talking is that this is conditioning
Yeah.
that we're experiencing. Our parents grew up with this mentality and they got it from their parents and their parents and their parents, and it's been passed down, especially when you are talking about the expectations of the invisible workload that
women often carry. This has been an expectation for so many years. And so to decondition ourselves from this, I think that this is a very manageable pathway to that.
Mm-hmm.
Really kind of creating these flexible goals. And I completely agree that making your frequency and duration as small as possible is the pathway towards it being the most sustainable way.
Mm.
I think it's also really important that, if you do want, a consistent habit, that you attach it to something that you do regularly.
Yes.
Whether that's just, I wake up and I meditate. The waking up part. Hopefully everybody wakes up in the morning. Come on, guys, please. Um,
Yeah.
That can be your cue. Okay, I've woken up. This is the perfect time for me to meditate. I don't have time to do this for very long. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I love mantras. I'm
Yes.
going to say a mantra for 2 minutes and then start my day.
Mm-hmm.
But also making sure that you give yourself some level of positive reinforcement after you've done this behavior helps it persist. Just by feeling good, just by making yourself your most favorite latte or whatever it is that feels good to you is going to help keep the habit, forming. And I think when you can fall back on something as tiny as 2 minutes,
Yes.
that's doable. And so most people can do it on most days, but you can also give yourself the grace when you don't have even that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have more time, great, it's bonus
Yes.
meditation time. Hooray. So I love that. And so that leads me into, I think, a really important question that I hadn't planned on asking you, but how do we rewrite this narrative for women especially? How do we make this mental load, invisible load, 50-50? How can we do this now? And what can we teach children moving forward so that the paradigm shifts?
I'm actually going to recommend a future podcast guest you should have. And it's
Yes.
Eve Brodsky. She's written the book Fair Play. She's done a ton of research in this area. It's an incredible book. There are so many like her, though, who have studied this and wrote about it and have many ideas. I mean, obviously, bigger things need to happen. And I'm talking culturally, socially, politically, there are things that need to happen that way. And that's when it can feel so defeating because it's like we are just working against a system that will never change. So when I'm teaching women about forming habits, and by the way, I so love that you shared about the habit stacking. That's really important too. Habits are there to make you feel like yourself.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the most revolutionary things you can do is form habits that are just about you and taking care of you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's one of the ways we can change it. And I truly believe that if more women were on their own list, the world would change. I really believe that. So that's one. The second thing has to do with, you talked about, you have to affirm the behavior. You have to have that positive reinforcement at the end. So the model I made for that is WTA. It's when, then, and after. So when you already have an existing habit, when I get up, then I meditate. That's your new habit. And then after, I affirm it in myself. I tell myself, good job, right? That's all with this behavior design in mind. You know what is crazy though, is as women learn to form new habits, they don't just change the way they see habits, they change the way they see themselves. Okay, I told you about how women often have broken down in tears when they learn, I'm not lazy, I'm a perfectionist. I have seen women dramatically change the way they see themselves because they now have a habit that sticks. And when we change the way we see ourselves, we also change what we know we are capable of, and we're able to do more. But the things that actually matter, not just the things we're supposed to do. Okay. So yeah, bigger things need to change, but we have to start right here. We have to start with what we can control. And those are two big things we can start with.
Oh my goodness, yes. And I am always talking about self-care, always talking about it. And I think it is vital.
And not
And
just
we
like the
are,
bubble bath variety, which that matters too, but it's so much
yes,
more basic than people think, self-care.
yes, yes. It is about making sure that this vessel is able to care for others.
Yeah.
And we are conditioned to think that we have to put ourselves last. And I know so many women who do this, and at their peril, especially at the peril of their health,
Yeah.
of their mental health, of their well-being. There, and I think it is so important to embrace that self-care is not selfish.
Yeah.
That just means that you are putting all of your health and your wellness first, so that then you can teach it to others or impart it upon others. And I think that that is absolutely vital. And I think more and more women especially are embracing this. I also think, and this is probably the topic of a much longer podcast, but I think that communication is everything.
Mm-hmm.
We have all of these unspoken expectations of women. You know, you're going to now, especially, you're going to, get fully
Do it all.
educated and have a career, but you also have to have children and you have to be the perfect wife. And you have to do all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still expected in society to do the same amount you were doing at home.
Yeah.
On top of having to go to work. It is completely unfair. And that is what needs to be vocalized to your partner, to whoever you're dealing with, that this is a team effort. And if you can pull the team together, including children, how do we make this whole family healthier, better, more functional?
Mm-hmm.
Gathering everybody's assistance. So rather than the female being the doer of everything, I think it's so important, because women are naturally good communicators, to become more of a CEO type
Yeah.
of person in their house, where they're calling together everybody and calling upon everyone to contribute. And that helps teach younger generations that that should be what's expected in a partnership, as opposed to this unequal distribution of labor, wearing down of the martyr mother,
Yes.
and, carrying that forward in the future. We don't need to be a part of that paradigm anymore. I really do think that men are on board
Yes.
with being equal partners, but we just need to communicate with them and get everybody on board, and not be subject to this old stereotype that isn't serving anyone anymore. Oh, Monica, there's so many questions I still have for you, but we're out of time. But I really want to know, A, what's in the future for you?
Sure.
If they have anything fun, interesting, neat coming up. And how can people work with you? Because I'm sure after listening to this, they're just going to be drawn to you. So point them in the right direction.
Thanks for the opportunity to do that. I'm actually writing a book right now called Happy Habits about this topic. I'm like neck deep in the why women need to do habits differently. And I'm like, I don't know if this is the book that they will have signed up for, but we'll see. And I would also recommend the Do Something List training. It's free, just at aboutprogress.com/DSL.
Wonderful. You are really, truly a joy. And I resonate so much with your journey. I think all women resonate with this journey. I think that it's really time for us to rewrite this narrative.
Yeah.
In that, and I don't want to, disclude men. I think men also have a lot
hurt
of
too
pressures
from this structure.
Yeah.
They do.
And they have a lot of pressures that,
Mm.
are similar, but some are different than ours. And if we can start to embrace the middle ground,
Yeah.
I think that that will lead to so much more flexibility, so much more ease, so much better mental health.
Yeah.
So what you're doing out there is really, really important. And I'm just so glad to have been connected with you. And I hope that we can have more conversations in the future. I know that we do have one coming up, and I'm excited about that. But I'd love to have you back on to maybe explore some of these topics that we didn't get to today.
Yeah, it seems like the disparity of the home labor would be a good one.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes, please.
lot to
That would
say on
be
that.
amazing. Please. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me,
Thank
Monica.
you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us on the ANEW Insight Podcast. We look forward to our next exciting interview, and we really hope you join us next time.
Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Insight Podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.